Well, welcome to Unapologetically Queer with me, Al Ferguson. I am proud to talk to some of the most interesting people that are interesting to our LGBTQ plus community. And today, music is in the air as we talk to Dan Bassett. He has been the artistic director of the South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble since 2006. Interesting, he is also the head of a middle school, St. Mark's Episcopal School here in Fort Lauderdale. He identifies as gay, and he is with us to discuss the Pride Wind Ensemble and guest performers who are going to be part of an upcoming concert on May 13th. The South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble will present its A Night at the Pops concert at 7 p.m. at Amatura Theater at the Broward Center for Performing Arts. Welcome, Dan, and I understand you're also unapologetically queer?
That's correct. I've been with my husband for 25 years.
Yeah, great. Well, very excited to meet you. I haven't met you before, but the reason why it's interesting to me is because it's unique in having music to this degree in the LGBTQ community. You have the wind ensemble, the youth band, marching band, jazz ensemble, tropical wind. Before we talk about your big concert, let's talk about this LGBTQ plus musical organization. For viewers that may not understand, one of South Florida's most important performing arts organizations is LGBTQ plus centric, celebrating nearly 35 years and more than 60 talented musicians. Its roots were to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ plus community and our allies. And you will notice it includes pride in its name. And there are many focus groups, as I said, including the ensemble, the youth band, the marching band, the jazz ensemble, and tropical winds. And there's even a parent association called the Pride Band Alliance. Dan, tell us a bit about this organization. It catches me by surprise because I'm a big theater and culture arts lover, but to have something so centric for LGBT in our community, we're really lucky.
It is something really special. As a part of the Pride Bands Alliance, which, as you said, is our parent organization, there's about 30 bands, mostly in the U.S., spread out throughout the country, and we're lucky in South Florida to have an LGBTQ plus and allies band here. We love performing for our local community, and I think it's a really important part of the overall arts scene. We don't want to be just seen as LGBTQ, but a really fine community concert band.
It springboards from our community to the broad community. In the 35 years, the organizational's first organizing principle and purpose was what in terms of where we were 35 years ago versus today?
Right, so 35 years ago, we were in the midst of the AIDS pandemic. A lot of community bands were starting to form. Our founder actually went to a conference in San Francisco and then came back with the idea we should really start an LGBTQ band here in South Florida. And it started at first with 6 people in a living room and has grown, as you said, to 60. Its purpose at the beginning was to march in the parades, to be visible in the community as a respected organization with the other musical organizations. Yeah. And as I said, in the midst of the AIDS pandemic, there were times, unfortunately, that they were doing memorial services as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that caught my attention is what you do for your other full-time job. Of course, you're in our community, but you have a title, which is interesting to me. You are head of middle school at St. Mark's Episcopal School here in Fort Lauderdale. It immediately stopped me when Wade, the artistic director of this very large LGBT cultural arts musical organization, also heading a middle school, and it had a religious connotation in the school that it serves. I'm curious, in today's political environment, tell me about the experience of being the head of a middle school of a Christian organization, church school.
So I have been at the school for 19 years. And when I first interviewed, I wanted to know, is this going to be something where I need to hide my identity? And early on I learned that it is not. The Episcopal religion is very open to all people. So that was really important to me. As head of middle school, I don't broadcast my sexuality, but I don't hide it either. I think most of the families know that I have a husband. There are many families at the school with same-gender parents. And the school and the church in general is very accepting of it. It's something a little unique to, I think, the Episcopal religion as a Christian religion.
And that's fascinating to me. And viewers that are listening to you, you know, at Queer News Tonight, we've reported, surveys show that the number one harm that LGBT says they face is from evangelical religion. And we're broadcasting in our studios here at Sunshine Cathedral. Sunshine is the absolute antithesis of that, of course. But I'm curious with the Episcopals, what's going on different there? Why do they think more progressively than the Southern Baptist Convention, for example?
I think one of the pastors at the church once said to me, the Episcopal religion is one that you don't leave your brain at the door. Oh. So you're allowed to question and believe, and you don't have to believe every word of the Bible. It encourages you to think outside and really accept everyone for who they are.
Last question related to schools and the intersection of churches and the politics that we're watching in the state and your faith. What do you think about what's going on from your standpoint? I just personally, your opinion. What do you think about what we're watching?
From my personal standpoint, I think the whole Don't Say Gay movement is going to be extremely damaging. And I think it's going to have long-term effects on our youth as they grow up. It's like we're going backwards instead of forward in the LGBTQ movement, and it's sickening to us. It's very sad. What's coming down from the state. Yeah,
it is. Music is one of the salvations for, I imagine, many LGBT in schools. So, but it is damaging. Let's talk about your annual spring concert. I read a preview of the musical event. It's going to be at Broward Center for Performing Arts, and the preview said it's going to be fun-filled. It's going to be lighthearted, a musical memory of fan favorites from the classical era to modern pop music. It's going to showcase music from Gershwin to Barry Manilow. Normally you don't see those two names associated with each other. And Sousa to the Rolling Stones. And that's John Philip Sousa for the vast majority of our audience who have no idea who that is. And a rousing rendition even of Casey at the Bat, which is a very famous, began as a radio play and narrated by Brian French. Tell us about the inspiration behind the spring concert.
So we like to make the spring concert very, very accessible, light, fun. We really want to fill the seats and have everyone leave with a smile on their face. And a night at the Pops, if you've ever been to like a New York Pops concert or any of the major symphony orchestras, it's
it's Boston.
Or Boston Pops. There's multiple Pops orchestras, but are you Bostonian?
Yes. Okay. No, but a big fan.
All right, exactly. Both wonderful. Of course, the Boston Pops, led by John Williams for a long time. I wanted to go with that kind of a concert where you have lots of soloists and fun music that's accessible to all. So we have a Grieg piano concerto by a top-notch piano soloist from Seattle, Ross Silvosa, who's coming in especially for this concert. As you said, we've got Brian French narrating, Casey at the Bat. We have a flute soloist who was a member of our youth pride band who won a solo competition that was provided a $5,000 scholarship from Floatorama. So we're very excited to have her play a flute solo with the band.
Wait. Floatorama did a scholarship, and that's connected to the concert.
Oh. It is. They were generous with a $10,000 grant to the organization. $5,000 was to help promote and run the Youth Pride Band, and we decided $5,000 would be a great way to spend on a solo competition.
Excellent.
The young lady is actually going to Boston Conservatory in the fall for flute performance.
Yeah. I was reading reading somewhere that she's performing and she's doing her graduation or something in the same day.
It's actually her prom.
Oh, her prom.
Yeah, so she's playing our concert. We'll have her early in the concert so she can jump in her car and go to her prom.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. In addition to the concert, I want to talk about the highlights you don't regularly hear about. You just mentioned some of them with queer and musical performance. Some of the soloists, as you have said, I want to get in some of these names. The student we're talking about is Maggie Stoutville. Yeah, a student at Hollywood Hills High School. And I want to echo again, Floatorama doing that soloist funding for you. The pianist program, or the pianist that's doing the program that is coming, what will they be doing in the concert?
The Grieg Piano Concerto, first movement, which is it's very bombastic, lots of fun, and it's very popular. It would have been popular in Grieg's time, very popular.
I see, yeah. And I read John Dimbach is doing Tuba Tiger Rag.
Right, so John Dierenbach is one of our longtime tuba players. He is part of our brass quintet, which is part of our tropical winds, chamber winds, or smaller groups that perform throughout the community. We have a clarinet quartet, clarinet choir, we've had sax choirs, other small ensembles. But the brass quintet, which I'm excited to be playing in for this concert, is playing Tuba Tiger Rag, and John will be the soloist on that.
Yeah, and of other highlights, one thing that I also gravitated to that I thought was super interesting, Fred Schiff with All Country Music. It's a family-owned and operated music store here in South Florida, and they have been serving musicians for a long, long time. They're going to play an alto sax and perform with the Pride Ensemble for the first time. Your integration really on an organic level of organizational support in the community and bringing them onto the stage, what's that commitment about?
Well, it's a small community when you really think about it in South Florida. And it's important to embrace everyone in music. There's several other community bands that we try to support, and community small orchestras. But having Fred Schiff on the concert is really special to us. He's been a very big supporter of not only the community bands and our band, but all the schools in the area, services most of the county for their instrument needs. And he's just a terrific person. It's a great company. And he contacted me early in the year and said, I really want to play with a couple of different community bands. Would it be okay for me to play on one concert? I said, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's not LGBT.
He is not, but
he's an ally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. And one of the other things that I read that I thought was interesting about this Pops concert, spring concert that you're doing, is the fact that we've been waiting for a long, long time for it. It was scheduled in the spring of 2000, and essentially we've been waiting since pandemic, and it was postponed because of pandemic, and it finally comes back, and not having been done since 2019. It's a long wait.
It is. The pandemic really shut our doors. We were doing some virtual concerts. We did some recordings of our small ensembles in backyards and put those out to folks via live stream. But it's really, it's like we're finally back after the pandemic. It took a lot longer than we hoped for. But
yeah, I always joke, I can't wait for the time that we're really back when we don't talk about the pandemic anymore. We're still having to talk about the pandemic, like your situation, the pop concert. I also want to take an opportunity. I have big belief of thanking the supporters that help make, especially our cultural organizations in LGBT thrive. We like to always recognize our supporters and those that help make events like this happen. I just want to mention Broward County Cultural Division, Florida Council of Arts and Culture, National Endowment of the Arts, and the Community Foundation of Broward, and the Charles and Ruth Taylor Fund. They do a lot in LGBT, and the Driel Foundation Fund. But I want to draw special attention to something that I love in this story of helping make the South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble happen, and that's Our Fund. Our Fund is one of the largest, to our viewers that don't know, Our Fund is one of the largest LGBT LGBT funding sources in America, and it's legacy giving, and has a giving component of about $25 million, and they're a big supporter of you.
They're a huge supporter, and not to go back to the pandemic, but they've really supported the arts organizations through the pandemic, still giving us grants just to keep our operations and doors open.
Yeah.
So through the years, Arts Fund has been absolutely incredible to us.
Dan, I'm curious, your thoughts about going through pandemic, the lack of being able to play publicly, to gather in theaters, etc. For musicians, for LGBT especially, musicians that want to gather and represent themselves out in this way. What has the last couple of years been like when you went through pandemic?
It's been really difficult. Some bands actually rehearsed via Zoom links, just trying to be with their fellow musicians. For some of our members, this is their social outlet. For some people, it's the LGBT sports organizations, but for a lot of our members, it's playing music. And there's something about music that just connects people. And without that connection through the pandemic, it was really difficult. Mm-hmm. We tried to keep in touch and try to give updates and try to keep people involved as possible.
Dan, what's the thing doing the concert May 13th? What are you most looking forward to? This single thing is the thing I'm looking most forward to.
I think personally, I'm most looking forward to playing on the concert. I haven't played on a concert, my trumpet, in a long time, and being part of the brass quintet is going to be a really, really fun moment.
Are you still good?
I'm all right, yeah.
I imagine you are.
Our viewers will have to come see the concert.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I love about this story, and I love that we can do this in Unapologetically Queer, you know, a lot of the big attack for those that are more ignorant than they should be is because they think we're all one thing. We're all this. And we love opportunities, you know, from a music standpoint. We love our Beyonce and we love our Lady Gaga, but there's more to our music scene than just that. And the South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble and all of the various things. I'm broadcasting with FayWhat, the Stonewall Pride Parade on Apple Television, June 17th. And I know the Pride Marching Band is going to come right down that street representing the community. So we remind you, May 13th, get your concert tickets. A Night at the Pops. You can get it at Broward Center for Performing Arts website, browardcenter.org/events. It's very easy. You don't want to miss this. First time since prior to pandemic that this is returned. South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble's A Night at the Pops. It's going to be 7 p.m. Amaturo Theater at the Broward Center for Performing Arts. Dan Bassett, the artistic director of South Florida Wind Ensemble, thank you very much for joining us here at Wind Cruise and Queer News tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.